I found out my fiancée jerked off a stripper at her bachelorette party, so I canceled the damn wedding. I'm 29, male, and my ex-fiancée, who is also 29 and female, was with me for 5 years. We should have been married now in the normal conditions, but I broke up with her and canceled the wedding 2 days before it because they invited male strippers to the bachelorette party. I am personally not a fan of these parties, but reluctantly agreed after both the groom and the bride's side confirmed we would keep it simple. I told my ex-fiancée I am not comfortable with strippers or other kinds of crazy things, and she agreed. I also told my friends that if they were to do something stupid without me knowing, we would have problems. We stayed at my friend's summer house and chilled by the pool, did some WoW raids and played board games. My ex-fiancée and her friends went to a restaurant, then rented an Airbnb. There was no problem during the night, and the next day I asked how things went. She and her close friends said it was really chill and good. We returned to the city center after that. I encountered another bridesmaid that day when I was shopping for a bracelet for my ex-fiancée for her upcoming birthday. I asked that girl how everything was going, as we were in the same department at the college but rarely talk now. She is closer with my fiancé than me. She said it was going good, and the last night was crazy with all the strippers. After saying that, she looked uncomfortable. I asked her about the details, but she was not willing to tell much. I think she realized she should not have talked about it. I laughed, said goodbye, and left. I confronted my fiancée and she seemed surprised about it. She was denying it first, then told me nothing crazy happened. One of the bridesmaids invited strippers. I reminded her that it was a strict boundary for me. I asked about the details, but she said there was nothing much with strippers, just solo dances, and that's it. I told her I needed some time to think. Almost all of the bridesmaids messaged me, ensuring nothing happened when I was on my way back home. Definitely not coordinated. Things happened after that. But in the end, I decided to break up and cancel the wedding. I lost some money since it was only 2 days before the wedding. Things are not cool right now. My head is messed up. I get criticism from everyone and have no idea about what to do. My sister told me to see a therapist to process my thoughts and feelings. That is what I'll do next. Some mutuals suggested that I should reconsider things and stop being so whiny about such a small thing. I do not think it's such a small thing, especially when they all tried to hide it from me. Am I the idiot here? Update, TLDR, bitter truth was revealed bit by bit. Ex-fiancé had a sensual interaction with a stripper. It's therapy time. I read most of the comments in the original post and thank you for the advice. My problem was not her being blindsided by her friends, but lying. Every bridesmaid told different things, and none of them gave details about what happened. I believe you can understand it just shatters the trust and makes you think there is something going on. I thought there was something wrong with me after reading the comments. There were a lot of, yes, the idiots, and I thought I should apologize. One of the bridesmaids reached out to me last evening. I suspect she saw the post somewhere and recognized it. I knew my fiancée was having problems with her friends since last week, but I did not know the extent. Apparently, my ex-fiancée and her close friends blamed the girl that I encountered at M for everything. This divided the group and led to a verbal fight. I will skip the personal details here, but in the end, she told me my ex-fiancé and other bridesmaids got sensual with the strippers. My fiancé was the only one who had a boyfriend, fiancé or spouse, monogamously, there to my knowledge. Also, I was told by her that my ex-fiancé was not blindsided with stripper invites. She was happy to see the strippers and was relieved she had an excuse. I do not have proof for all of these, but I got a short video of girls making out with strippers. One of the girls is my ex-fiancé, and that's enough. She has been trying to reach out to me since we broke up. I confronted her again. At first, she denied it, then it became we just touched, then okay we kissed too, then okay, I gave him a handjob. Finally, I was coerced into doing these by others as I pressed on. I just blocked her after the last part. I did not see any need to learn further. I was hurt already, but learning that I got cheated on hurt more. I am not sure if it's the full truth even now. I will never know, but all I can say is that it hurts. I will go to a therapist to not carry this luggage into my next relationship. I lost $15,000 from the wedding-related things and need to focus on filling the hole for a while. Some misogynists made weird comments about women, and I'll just ignore them. Some of the people told me I am an insecure, unfunny nerd for playing WoW on my bachelor party. Isn't the whole point of bachelor parties having one last fun? It was raiding non-stop with the boys for me, not having one last sensual interaction with a stranger or having a stranger be on my face or pee. I will not miss these during marriage, anyway, omitting the stranger part. That's it. It's therapy time tomorrow, and thank you for the help. Final update. A quick update with good news. I sorted out most of the mess regarding the wedding ceremony. Ex-Phil and ex-Mill came to learn about the details and covered $10,000 of the wedding costs. I also got the ring back. They are amazing people, and I wish them nothing but the best. They apologized for what happened, even though it has nothing to do with them. My ex is blocked everywhere and has stopped reaching out to me. I assume her parents had a good talk with her. I have people supporting me during this tough time around me, thankfully, especially my friends. We keep playing Season of Discovery with the boys because, well, classic sucks. Story 2. This one is not technically my revenge, but some revenge I got to see up close and take joy from, and slightly participate in the background. This most of the story, so this will be a little long. Trigger warning for self-slaughtering. I was in the Navy and stationed at the submarine base in Connecticut. I had a friend I met in boot camp, and we were in the same class for our school Navy job training. We'll call that friend Bill. Now, Bill wasn't the most physically fit guy. He was short, kind of chubby, and wore glasses. However, Bill was really smart, and as the sonar technician he was meant to be, he would have been amazing. He had a pragmatic way of looking at things which I really valued in a friend, and I know it would have made him successful if he had made it out to the fleet. While in school, we had a couple of petty officers that were hard-ass. They somehow convinced themselves they were super soldiers despite the fact that our jobs in that field are really nerd-centric. You get picked for that job because of your math and computer skills, not your deadlift number. Still, they were both all about being fit and working out all the time. We would do physical training 3 times a week, and while most of us could keep up, Bill often fell behind on runs or didn't quite meet what these two idiots believed to be the standard. To be clear, Bill did pass the minimum requirements for fitness. He just didn't go as extreme as these guys. Side note for other Navy vets, he got the McPone coin for how hard he pushed himself at PT. The day he visited, the end result was that they would constantly berate and belittle Bill. They'd call him fat, lazy, and everything else. They'd tell him he should slaughter himself. You name it, they were always on his case despite him passing his assessments. At some point, Bill pushed himself too hard and injured his knee. He told these petty officers he was injured and had been seen by the doc on base. The doc had put him on light duty so the knee could recover. He had the paperwork to back it up. They elected to ignore that and threaten him with kicking him out if he didn't do the workouts. So Bill kept pushing himself, injuring himself more, and his mental health degraded. During my time in the Navy, you didn't get mental health services really. The only person to talk to like that was the chaplain. For those who don't know, the chaplain is the religious leader, usually a pastor, priest, rabbi that has signed up as a commissioned officer. Our chaplain was the sweetest little woman you ever met, but as a chaplain, she held the rank of captain, a high-ranking officer. So, Bill set up a meeting with the chaplain to talk about things. When Bill informed the petty officers he would be missing class the next day for his chaplain meeting, they yelled at and berated him more. They called him a pansy, not fit for the Navy, and everything else you can imagine. They convinced Bill he was being weak and the chaplain wouldn't care about his issues, that nobody would care. They promised to make life even harder if he didn't show the next day. So he canceled his meeting. Evidently, bad luck hit, and that night his girlfriend was also breaking it off with him. She wasn't worth his time or money, but he couldn't see that night. I awoke to a 3 a.m. call from Bill. I couldn't hear anything and I asked several times, "Bill, are you there? Are you okay?" It wouldn't have been the first time that I got a drunk dial from one of my friends after a hard day. Like Bill, sailors have been known to drown their sorrows a bit. Eventually, I figured it was a bad drunk dial and hung up and went back to bed. I still regret that decision. The next day, all hell broke loose. Me and a couple other friends got calls from Bill's now ex-girlfriend, informing us he was in the hospital because he slit his own throat. Turned out, a few of us got that 3 a.m. call, but Bill couldn't speak at the time and was kind of out of it due to blood loss. We finished what we had to do on base and rushed over to the hospital. As we got there, the chaplain was on her way out and we passed her in the hallway. She spoke to us briefly to say that Bill would be okay and she wouldn't forget this. I have never seen a look on someone's face that so accurately depicted raw, unfiltered rage. It took us all by surprise because she was such a small, sweet, and personable lady, but the look in her eyes, you could just tell she wanted someone to pay for this. She wanted revenge, and we all knew she wore the kind of rank that could get it done. We visited Bill, who could barely talk, but he told us the story of what had happened, what he was thinking at the time, and how glad he was it didn't work. Apparently, it was cold enough that the blood clotted on the outside of his neck and made a kind of patch that kept him alive long enough for the EMS to find him and get him to a hospital. The doctor said he missed his carotid by about 1 millimeter. A week went by, and we hadn't heard anything until we got called in by the chief of the training command, the boss to these petty officers. He said he wanted to check on the rest of us and make sure there weren't any other issues with these guys he wasn't aware of, and that we were all okay. I let him know about the insulin chewing he gave me a few months back, that I was really set up by these guys and they had lied to him. My friends cited a couple of other examples of their own, with these guys being generally crappy, dishonest people. I don't think it mattered. I think their fates were already sealed, and we were being asked for more ammo to bury them with. The next day, they were nowhere to be found, and we were introduced to new instructors who would be taking over our training permanently after class. I decided to stop by and ask the chaplain what happened. She told me she had never been more disgusted by the actions of a sailor than these two guys who convinced someone not to come see her. She teared up a bit, regretting that she didn't get the chance to help Bill before he made his attempt. In her mind, it was these two that precipitated and enabled Bill's attempt. So on to the revenge, the chaplain told me. She went to the admiral in charge of the entire base and demanded their immediate discharge. He granted it. Both petty officers were immediately processed out with dishonorable discharges. I can't remember the exact charge I heard they cited for it, but I know the Navy has a way of selling BS on paper when they want a certain outcome, especially officers at that high level. So basically, they get no VA benefits of any kind, got kicked out of the base housing they lived in, and could probably only find work at a gas station or under-the-table stuff somewhere. Also, I know from someone else who got the boot that the Navy only pays for a single bus ticket to get you back home, not your family or any of your belongings when you have a discharge like that. No company with DoD contracts is allowed to hire you. That includes McDonald's because they have stores on bases throughout the country. Taco Bell, Subway, etc. None of them will give you a job. They can't, and they don't want to anyway. So I don't know where these guys went or what became of them, but I know their lives were irrevocably ruined. One of them had about 18 years in, so he was 2 years from retirement and lost it all. The other was at about 12 years, so he also lost a lot. Wherever they are now, I'd be very surprised to hear they're making more than minimum wage. As for Bill, while he made a full recovery, he got a full medical discharge, which is an honorable discharge. That means he gets to pay for the rest of his life, full benefits, and a referral to a counselor in his home state once he got back there, all paid for by the Navy. We lost touch over the years, but I did see on Facebook that he got himself together, became a police officer, and got married. Edit to add. For those who have pointed it out, their discharges were actually OT, but I didn't want to have to explain the difference or have people Google it. We always use dishonorable colloquy for OT, BCD because they all mean you got the boot and your life is going to suck. But no, they didn't do full CM or any brig time. But I did hear they pushed it to ASB and lost. Also, someone pointed out that Bill wouldn't get the medical at 100% for his neck. That's also true. He wouldn't have, but they wrote it up for his knee because it was basically bone on bone inside. I think they decided to do him a favor and not put him down as a mental health discharge. Story 3. TLDR, my former boss, in a fit of anger, told me to get a new job because his business was failing. He regretted it the next day and told me not to leave. I left anyway to work for his friend's law firm. My former boss didn't realize that to actually make money, he had to show up for work. Instead, he came and went as he pleased and expected me to pick up the slack, essentially trying to play the role of receptionist, paralegal, office manager, and attorney. I never gave legal advice, he just expected me to, and so did his clients. His friend, who was also my divorce attorney and worked in the same building, would pop in just to chat and see how things were going. But he started noticing my boss was absent more often than not, and questioned how things were going. I started confiding in him that I was really concerned because I could see my former boss shelling out more than he was making, and his clients were less than pleased at never being able to speak with their attorney. Then, my former boss started doing some unethical and shady things to move cases along, and I started getting really nervous about what would happen if he got caught and what it meant for me. I told my attorney, my former boss's friend, all of this, and he said that his own firm needed extra support staff. However, he didn't want it to appear like he was poaching me from his friend on purpose. He advised me to talk with my former boss about the state of the office and see if there was a way to salvage things. I never really got that chance, though, because later that day, my former boss stormed into the office and told me I needed to start looking for a new job. He advised me to just take the first offer I got because he was probably going to have to shut his doors in the next 90 days and couldn't guarantee me a paycheck. I spoke with my attorney the next day about it, and he shrugged and said for me to just give my 2 weeks' notice and call it a day. Later that same day, my former boss came into the office and told me to hold off on finding a new job and to give him a month to turn things around. Sorry, but I've got bills to pay, so I'm not going to sit idly and wonder if I'm going to see my next paycheck or not, I said. I drafted my 2 weeks' notice only because my attorney asked it of me as a professional courtesy to his friend and gave it to my former boss at the end of the pay period. His surprised Pikachu look was all too familiar. "You're leaving, but why?" he asked. "For our conversation on that date, you advised me to find other employment, so I did. Where Friends Law Firm is serious when they say, 'When I make this business work, I'm going to want you back. Is there going to be a problem?' Good luck," I replied. "What's he paying you?" "Less than you in half the hours, but at least I know his checks won't bounce." I heard from my replacement on his first solo day, I trained him during my last week, that my former boss regretted telling me to leave on a whim because I was the only one who knew anything about his cases. Sucks to suck, I thought. He shouldn't have left me to run his firm without help, knowing I'm not an attorney or a licensed paralegal while he went on lavish vacations and ignored all his clients. Even if my former boss wanted to try to get me to come back, I've already been bumped to full-time hours and gotten a raise in less than a month. There's also a promise of a second raise very soon, to put me at what I was making at my former boss's, but here I get paid holidays, PTO, and sick leave. No way on God's green earth would I go back to my former boss, I decided. Relevant comments. I bet the only reason your new boss didn't match your hours and pay at first was because you were left on your own so much. You weren't sure how much you knew about the job. Guess it didn't take long to prove yourself and vindicate his instinct. You might be a good hire, that was part of the reason. Yes, my former boss also worked mainly with probate in county courts on administration guardianship cases, whereas my new boss only does family law cases in district courts. That's a bit of a learning curve, but he was impressed at how quickly I can catch on and remember these different policies and procedures. Initially, my role was mainly clerical, but now I'm absorbing a few basic responsibilities of his. Partly, though, only what I am qualified to do, contacting courts and requesting copies of documents, or initial drafts of basic documents. In my new boss's words, I'm not yet fully accountable for all of my work since he or his paralegal review every document I am assigned. But once I lose my training wheels, that's when I get bumped up to my former salary. All's well that ends well. Glad you got a better situation, OP. Thank you. It was definitely uncomfortable those last couple of months of showing up and not knowing what fires I'd have to put out. From angry court staff, angrier clients, and opposing counsels. I felt like I was drowning. Things are a lot better now, and I don't dread waking up and going to work.